Hello and welcome back to my channel. Today for Zero Waste Wednesday we are focusing on children and things to do with them. Perhaps if you're still in lockdown when you're watching this, things that you could try. This is not an exhaustive list, so if you think of anything that I've not mentioned, I would love if you put in the comments your ideas so that we can get a bit of sharing going on. And before we begin, I just wanted to acknowledge that we all need to remember that everyone's got different budgets, different amount of time and space available, and also different materials at home, and for example if you've got a garden or not, that kind of thing. So not to worry, use any of the ideas you like. Maybe you'll be able to adapt some to fit if I haven't mentioned a way that does in this video, and just to be mindful of that. So the first idea I have for you is to look online, and there's been a brilliant resource that I've seen from the Woodland Trust, and on their website they have got a section with all the different kinds of birds that you could see out the window in the UK. So you could do this from the window. If you've got a tree in your garden, perhaps you have birds in and out of your garden. If you don't have a garden, you could do this in the park on your daily walk, on your daily exercise, as maybe a little bit of an incentive for children to walk. But the website has little sound clips of all the different bird song that you might hear. So you can try and identify what birds you hear. And the other thing I thought was quite good about this was maybe if you have a relative that you're video calling or you're speaking to, it might be a nice thing for them to do as well, and then you can discuss which birds you've heard and just see the differences and similarities. The next idea I have for you is around gardening. Now you may or may not have a garden, but some of these could be done in pots. So you can use egg cartons to sow seeds. It could be as simple as a bit of cotton wool and some cress seeds. Lots of supermarkets sell seeds, so you might be able to get it as part of your weekly shop, or you could order online. And just getting children involved in growing plants is a brilliant activity to do, because first of all, it's a good skill, but second of all, you can create learning opportunities from that. So it could be that they measure how tall it's grown, and then they measure it each week or something like that, or it could be looking at the shapes of the leaves and comparing them. So using that as a springboard for their learning, and knowing that you can always plant some more if perhaps they don't take the first time. The next idea I had for you was involving the library. Now, I belong to more than one library, but my favourite library has a particularly good array of online resources. So I urge you to check your library membership, and if you haven't got one, you can actually, some of them will now allow you to join online during lockdown, but you can have audiobooks, you can have so stories read out to you, they've got plays, and you could also have normal books but electronically, so you can get cookbooks and fiction as well as non-fiction, so all kinds of things. They're particularly good for, the audiobooks are particularly good for reluctant readers and also for younger children as something to listen to while they're playing. The next idea I have for you is to encourage your children to cook with you. So it could be as simple as chopping cucumber for a salad. You could get them to do some stirring if they're safe near a hob. So find lots of ways to encourage children to help cook the meals. And the reason for that and why it's so zero waste is that once they have been involved in the creating of a meal, they're more likely to eat it, and therefore you get less food waste. So I think that's a really good idea to try and get them to do something towards a meal, even if it's mixing a salad dressing, because then they're going to want to eat the salad because they put the dressing on it. So that's one. And the second idea for cooking is that instead of buying individually wrapped snacks in little plastic wrappings, to encourage children to help cook snacks instead. So a really simple, obvious one would be flapjacks or some sort of cereal bar like that. But you could go crazy and make chocolate chip cookies and things along those lines, or cheesy crackers if they like those. I would still portion control them and put them, sometimes I put them in little boxes, or I say to them, you know, you're allowed so many per day, and that's that once you've got to your limit, because otherwise you feel like you're just cooking constantly because they just eat everything. But on the other hand, you're in control of what's in the item, so that's also quite good. And it doesn't have to be anything complicated. It could be as simple as chopping some fruit and putting it in the fridge ready for later, so that you've got chopped fruit on hand for snacks. The next thing is to focus on imagination and creativity, and that generally goes to children all the time, but with being at home, there's obviously lots of recycling being created with the toilet tubes and cardboard packaging. So see if you can get children interested in creating things. Sometimes I show mine a picture that I found on Pinterest or somewhere, and I say, oh, we could make this, and they say, oh yes, and then we get everything out and they make something totally different, and it doesn't matter, but I just think sometimes giving them a picture to look at can spark something that they then go off and create their own thing. So I would definitely recommend using that. Another option would be to take a milk carton and pierce some holes into the lid. So when you fill the milk carton with water and you put the lid on, you can then tip it up and pour it. It's like a watering can, which would tie in really nicely if you were planting some seeds that needed watering. So all of these things would facilitate learning with the motor skills and things like that, where they're cutting and gluing and things like that. And the last thing is, if you do have any outdoor area, perhaps allow some of the grass to grow a bit longer. This encourages wildlife to come to your garden. And the zero waste aspect of this is some people have had their green waste collection, their garden waste collection, halted whilst we're in lockdown. So to prevent that piling up, maybe don't cut part of the lawn and allow that to grow really long, and then you can go and observe the wildlife that comes to visit it. So it could be butterflies and ladybirds and all kinds of things like that. You could use that as a way of going out to draw them and paint them, or it could be that you want to do some kind of maths around it where they're counting how many flies come past and how many ants they can count, and then making it into a graph. There's loads of different ideas that you can do with that. But the really great thing is that the wildlife will really thank you for it, especially the bees and creatures like that. So I hope you've enjoyed these ideas. If you check out my blog, which I'll put a link in the video below, in the description box, then you'll be able to read any other ideas and comment and add your own ideas to it. But I hope to see you again soon for our next Zero Waste Wednesday. Namaste.